One of the most wonderful and strange things to me about public art is all these people coming together and wanting to create a gift for their community. I see my job as a public artist is to really genuinely consider the idea of community, and in that way that it's always changing, it's always variable, and it's always imperfect. But within that imperfection, how to create a sense of mutuality and belonging, both through the process and through the piece that's developed. César Chávez was a civil rights activist. He fought for the rights of migrant farm workers, primarily in California, although later in his life it expanded beyond California.
I think if you're of an age, you knew about César Chávez and that he worked for the people, for the good of the people, for the poor people, for the working people. So, that resonates with everyone, or should.
One of the things I discovered about him was that he died with an art book in his hands. And which is very poetic and appropriate, his struggle for justice was intimately intertwined with creative expression. And here's the tie-in. And many art historians see him sort of as the godfather of contemporary Hispanic or Latino Chicano art. In the 60s, for the first several strikes, there were a couple of young people who came up, young artists came up and wanted to participate, and he said, yeah, let's participate, I want you guys to participate. One of them was a guy named Luis Valdez, who was a theater person, and so he said, Chavez said to Valdez, I want you to participate, and Valdez said, what do I do? And Chavez looked at him and said, make something out of nothing. And so I always really liked that and was very inspired by that.
Well, I would imagine everybody thinks their neighborhood's unique, but I'm no different. I was born and raised in the South Broadway neighborhood. It is a true neighborhood in that people have lived here for many, many years, hundreds of years. It's a neighborhood that has evolved over years. And like most neighborhoods, we have our peaks and we have our downsides. Many people would say that going back many years ago that this was historically an African American community. I would probably agree with that, but I would add to that historically this neighborhood have had Hispanic families who have lived here for hundreds of years, and that this just so happened to be a neighborhood that was open to African Americans coming into this neighborhood. Many people came here because they worked on the railroads, they were with the military, the Kirtland Air Force Base, and so this was a neighborhood that people, there was a population of African Americans that began to concentrate in this neighborhood and began to take hold and to engage with the other local folks to become part of the fabric of this neighborhood. So this neighborhood has a good history of being an old historic neighborhood, a neighborhood that is inviting of others and accepting of others. So that's what I like most about it. We're probably, if not Albuquerque's most diverse neighborhood, we are certainly one of Albuquerque's most diverse, racially and culturally diverse neighborhoods. This is a place where there is a sense of openness, a sense of acceptance, and so as a result, we do have a large population of Mexican immigrants in this neighborhood. And so that makes the neighborhood more diverse.
When I was a finalist for the project, I spent a lot of time there. I spent several afternoons there just walking around, visiting with people, talking with people. One of the greatest parts of that little neighborhood is the library. And in the 60s, they were like in a very gentle way, a little bit radical. They had a sign, like most libraries have signs that say silence or don't talk. They had a sign that was really popular that said speak up. And I always liked that. In my understanding, this project took a long time from start to finish. My part of it was long enough, but before that was even longer. From what I understand, it started about 15 years ago. The community wanted to do this, and there were struggles along the way.
Steve Gallegos, Vince Griego, and I had pushed a resolution to name a street after César Chávez. And at that time, that new road to the airport was being built. And I said, no name, nobody lives out there, no controversy. We were wrong. God, I'm just going to say this because I do have a lot of business friends, but the business community came out strong against us. I mean, they were just adamantly against naming the airport road Cesar Chavez. And I know that some of them didn't mean it, but they came across kind of racist when they were saying things, well, that's a gateway to our city when people fly in, and how are they going to act and react when they see a street named after this man? Because I think they're going to probably say, hey, it's okay, you know? So then we took it to the council. We lost it on a 5-4 vote. But then we came back and we were able to get the vote. I think it went 6-3 or 7-2. I can't even remember. But it has been a struggle. And I think that we sort of smile about it and laugh about it later. Steve and I did, and Vince, because, you know, it sort of gave us a struggle that we went through, and not even close to what Cesar Chavez went through. But, you know, it sort of continued that you can't give up. And I think what Cesar Chavez did is really made people aware that we're all humans. We don't care what color, what language we speak, whatever, we're all humans. And so when Steve wanted an art piece, we knew it would take a long time. We didn't think it'd take this long, but we knew it would take a long time.
And I know that there was a lot of controversy there, and I don't know all the details of it, but I do know that it was a difficult time finding a place for the Cesar Chavez Boulevard. When it came to our neighborhood and it was proposed to us, our neighborhood thought it was just wonderful. It made sense. We have a population here that we need to openly accept and acknowledge. We have a population that understands Cesar Chavez and the struggle. This is a struggling neighborhood. We kind of feel like we had a lot in common with Cesar Chavez, the man, and his movement, and we had the racial composition and the cultural composition in this new neighborhood that it just allowed us to add one more dimension to what is a really diverse community and to celebrate the cultures of this community. When we were asked about placing the boulevard here, we said, well, you know, that makes sense to us, but, you know, we need to go a little further. We need to do a little research. We need to talk to people in our neighborhood. We need to go to the local elementary school. We took the plans, we took the discussion to the community. We had little meetings about it. What did it mean to us? Is it good? Will it work for us? And we decided that it was something we should accept and that we should celebrate it and actually invite that in. And after that, subsequent to that, when the public art project came along, well, to us it was a natural. Where else would you put it but in South Broadway and on Cesar Chavez Boulevard?
For me, there are two really satisfying parts of working in public art. The first is, at the finalist stage, after having visited with the community, doing research, really getting invested in that community, and finally coming up with an idea, some kind of metaphor that I think really works. That's very exciting and satisfying for me. The second part of it is working with all the different people who are involved in the process. As an artist, you know, typically we see artists as sort of like these isolated beings working alone in their studios, and it's really great to come out of that studio and interact with all these people who have, you know, flaws and vulnerabilities just like we do, and sort of come together and create something.
When we chose Paula's piece, I think that there are a number of things came together for all of us. One was that artistically it was very sound. It was artistic, but at the same time it spoke about Cesar Chavez in a way that spoke metaphorically, spoke literally, and it was sound. It was solid.
The Cesar Chavez project is constructed out of concrete, and we decided to go with concrete because it has a really nice presence to it. It's very easy to imagine a monumentality to it with concrete. There are three cast pieces. One of them is the Guadalupe. The Guadalupe is a reference to the United Farm Workers Union, and a lot of the people carried her standard, you know, both as a sort of a request for her divine intervention, and also because the Guadalupe really is a symbol of the poor and the oppressed and the humble. The other cast piece is right around here. It's a big mural, and it's faces community in the garden, and it relates to the fact that our food is completely intertwined with who we are. And then the third cast piece is this one right here, and it reads off of another piece. This is a two-dimensional image. It's farm workers in a field, and it reads off of that, and it's sort of like the field reading off of that piece. So the last piece then is it's a porcelain enamel piece, images of farm workers in the field. And I don't know if many people know this about Chávez, but as a civil rights leader, he really was one of the few that was an environmentalist. And his idea of environmentalist really related to social ecology. He was very inspired by the teachings of St. Francis, and he saw that, he felt that there was a parallel between oppression in society and our relationship to nature. And he felt that they were very intertwined.
He truly was an environmentalist. One of his biggest fights was against use of pesticides on, especially table grapes, but on fruits and vegetables. Not only what it does to the consumer, but also what it did to the environment. So I was really glad to see that she picked up on that part of his stuff.
I think artists never really create artwork for themselves. The whole, for me, speaking personally, the whole intent is to communicate with people. And so ever since my beginnings as an artist, I've always wanted to create work that sprang from this world and that was part of a larger lived experience. And so public art really works well with that ideal. I think the biggest difference between creating art for a gallery or a private collection or museum compared to public art is that there's so many more people invested in the development of a public art project. The community, a variety of voices within that community who have ideas about their analysis of what their community is like, the public art people, and then all the people that the artist eventually works with to manifest that piece. And that's a really exciting part of it. I think in a really wide variety of complex ways it brings communities together. It offers an interruption to daily life, but it's also a really big part of daily life. And so what it sort of creates for people is kind of like a coffee shop moment where people are suddenly, they encounter each other in a less rational way, and they become more open to each other and more open for creating a sense of belonging with each other and a sense of mutuality.
This is a very difficult spot to get to. We want to make it worthwhile to people to navigate the street to get to this site and to read what's here and to look closely at what's been put on the site. As we were talking to the neighbors about what we wanted to see on this site eventually, in our total view of the site, we'd like to see this as kind of a gathering space, kind of a people's market. And let's think about it. Farming was what César Chávez was all about. So this neighborhood has a history, and it's also an old agrarian neighborhood, the South Valley areas, where farming was once what it was all about. So we want to see this as a place where people can actually bring their garden to market, what they grow, and maybe do an exchange here, but a place where people will have a reason to gather and have social events and celebrate not only the neighborhood and the struggle and the successes of our neighborhood, but also the history and the story of César Chávez.
My hope for the César Chávez Memorial in the city of Albuquerque is that it opens people up to a consideration of recognizing people in our community who we may not all the time and who contribute in a really deep way, in a daily way. Not just people who are, inventing all these wonderful things or creating all these big things, but people who lead a daily, dignified life. That's my hope for it.